fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
It's beginning to feel like it's all Daytona all the time, but we're certainly not complaining here on SimSpeed TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Epiroc Sprint Series Australia is back one more time for the lead up, the hype session, the prelude to the Daytona 24, obviously happening this weekend on the iRacing service. But GT Leagues Australia has decided to put together a prelude race, 45 minutes, with all the requisite classes around Daytona International Speedway. We're in qualifying now, all classes getting 3 laps to set a time in a solo session. I'm Reese Gardiner. Joining me is David Haynes, Jay Kennedy on cameras. David, I've been looking forward to Daytona for a while. There's always good racing to be had here.
Yep, you think about Daytona and it's draft, those long straights of the banking of the super speedway mean very high speeds that these kind of GT and sports cars don't get at some other circuits. It means that slipstream is super powerful. It's very hard to break away from someone, and what we end up with is maybe 45 minutes of pack racing, a lot of drag race photo finishes on the final lap, that run from the bus stop all the way around half of the oval to the start finish line. It's never settled until that final lap here, no matter what cars you're racing at Daytona.
Yeah, no matter what indeed, but we should go through the cars that we are racing as we go into the qualifying session. Obviously, we've got the Daytona prototype. Of course, Chris Owen, the only representative of that class, unfortunately, so it's going to be an easy victory for him in that class. But it's a very difficult car to drive. Tyres start out very cold. And of course, you've got all the traffic to deal with, which consists of our GTE and GT3 classes. Of course, some of the most excellent GT racing around the world you can find in IMSA. We've got the Merc and the Audi in GT3, and we've got all 4 GTE cars represented as Philip Morton in the BMW GTE is starting his first qualifying lap. And Luis Paulo Gallon, who started off this practice session as the top GT3 car, also coming into turn 1 now to begin his lap. And a lap around here in a GT3 car is quite easy, on the surface at least. You got traction control, you got anti-lock brakes, but this track can throw a few surprises at you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is once you narrow it down to there only really being about 4 braking zones around this circuit, it's so critical to get them right, every single one of them as best you possibly can, because if you mess up the corner onto the banking and you mess up the bus stop, it will cost you very, very dearly.
Yeah, exactly. That corner is what Luis Paulo Gallon is navigating right now. It's very difficult. Lots of bumps right in the middle of the corner. You have to be very smooth getting the power down in just about any car. But from then on, it's a nice, relaxing run towards the bus stop chicane. Huge amount of banking here at Daytona. Of course, not quite traveling fast enough to feel the effects of the banking, but really slingshots you out onto that back straight. And then you pick your braking point for the bus stop. You've got to try and use all of the curb that you possibly can between 4th and 3rd gear, this one, and another few bumps on the exit. It looked like a clean exit there from Gallon, though.
Yeah, of course, on the exit, they're very easy to catch a little bit too much grass, take all four wheels off the circuit, and have your qualifying time not count. That is a very, very easy thing to fall victim to here at Daytona. But some of the times starting to come in, still on board with Luis Paulo Gallon. We'll see where he fares in the GT3 class. And 142 puts him to the top for the moment. He's 3/10 clear of Trent Thomas, but everyone has 2 more laps that they can set in this session. We'll see who's quick out of the gate and who's maybe carrying enough fuel and bringing the tyres in gently.
Yes, indeed. Looking on board with Philip Morton in his BMW GTE car. There's no anti-lock brakes on these machines, so you have to be a bit more careful coming into the corners. Easy to lock up, especially on the BMW. It seems to be the quickest car in the class around this place, but a lot of finesse required to drive it. And Phil riding those bumps very nicely in that Fitzstye car. Beautiful shade of purple, looks almost iridescent in the dusk glow.
Yeah, his way onto the banking, he takes it all the way up high, and it's a full throttle run all the way to that bus stop chicane, which is the only braking zone he's got left in his lap. And it can be kind of tough if you are having a good lap early on, and you know it's just that one bus stop you need to get it exactly right and to bank your lap. Otherwise, if you mess it up, you'll be just hurting time all the way to the checkered flag here. Looks good for Philip Morton that time. Currently has no time on the board though, so he might need to bank this one. Hope that the last one can improve.
Yeah, sometimes takes a couple of laps for cars to get up to speed at Daytona, because with the nature of the oval section, as Phil sets a 41.07, immediately goes to the top in GTE, and that's the end of his run. So looks like that's all he needed to do. Engine temperature up to par, and fuel load up to par too. How can Bailey Sweeney do in the Prologue React Esports Mercedes meanwhile?
Yeah, relatively quick in the practice session was Bailey here, but no time yet in the qualifying. And interesting thing to note, with all the drivers allowed 3 laps in this session, Bailey Sweeney's going to use all of the apron on the front stretch to shorten the run. The official IMSA sessions, you only get 2 laps of qualifying. A lot of people might have qualifying setups built around only having enough fuel for 2 flying laps instead of the 3 they're being offered here. Bailey Sweeney goes to 6th in class and looks like doing another lap.
So now we look to Brady Myers for Altus Esports, one of the newer signings to that team. Good to see Brady getting a run with a top team in Australian sim racing again. He comes across the line to begin his lap, and now he's shown a lot of pace in front-engine rear-wheel drive cars, and the BMW, similar in terms of layout to the supercars, front-engine rear-wheel drive V8 engine, but the BMW has a much better chassis, much grippier tires, 2 turbochargers on the engine, able to put the power down very nicely through the infield, which is one of the most crucial parts of the lap. It's only a small segment of it distance-wise, but it can make or break your lap time, especially at this horseshoe, which tightens up in the middle and has a very tricky exit.
Yeah, very, very critical here in qualifying for putting down a good lap time. Sometimes around here you can get away with a car that's a bullet in a straight line and struggles through that infield there. In race trim, in qualifying, it needs to be perfect because you've got no draft off anyone in front of you here to help you around. So we'll see what some of those differences look like in the race coming up for us. But here in qualifying, certainly it needs to stop well, turn well, and accelerate well out of that infield section.
And it looks like it's turned well and accelerated well through the bus stop as well. Very clean run there for Brady Myers. And only one very straight turn to go for him. I'm expecting this to be very close to challenging Philip Morton's time. In the majors, Daytona 2.4, we saw Morton set the pace in that one and eventually win, but Myers only ends up 3rd. So very close to Warren Pickering, 0.04 of a second, but pole remains in the domain of Philip Morton.
Yeah, 0.2 off Myers continues. I'm not sure he's got time to finish another lap. A man who doesn't have a time on the board yet as well, Thomas McMillan. He's on the banking now, so he'll be at least halfway around the lap. He's going to be racing the clock, though, with 50 seconds left in the session. He's, I think, maybe just far enough around. So too Cameron Dance.
Yeah, Cameron Dance coming through the final turn on the oval, and he's going to get across the line before the clock runs down. Very high speeds being reached of about 283 kilometers an hour in a straight line, using all of the apron through the tri-oval. And for Cameron Dance, that's not a lap time. He might have ultimately wasted his opportunity for a qualifying lap there. No time on the board.
The only place that it's very, very easy to pick up an off-track around here is through that bus stop chicane. Everywhere else, there's a lot of grass beside the circuit. There's no runoff that you can try and cut your way through. So that finishes up qualifying.
Indeed it does. And now time for a message from our sponsor, Epiroc.
With Epiroc, I've had the opportunity to work internationally, study and develop my skill set. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. The starting grid then for the Prelude to the Daytona 24. It's Philip Morton on pole in GTE. It looks like Chris Owen not taking the start, so it's going to be an all-GT race here. Warren Pickering lining up at the front as well. Brady Myers and Lee Vandenberg third and fourth. Ben Dutton and Daniel Cheney, row 3. Nick De Silva and Luis Paulo Gallon putting it on pole there in the GT3 class. Darren Huxham and Pat Gallo, 7th and 8th in GTE.
We look over the leaf here, and you see the GT3 and GTE cars intermingled here in the timings. They will be separated on the grid into their relevant classes, but Jackson Suslan-Harlow has the 11th fastest time. BJ Kennedy slots in there in his position, and Bradley Ratu 3rd in class. Trent Thomas 4th in class. Sam Devantier will be 11th in the GTE division. Scott Solosky then in 5th for the GT3 cars. Michael Healy with 6th. Thomas McMillan, we saw just getting a time in before the checkered flag to start 7th in his class, and Bailey Sweeney 8th fastest GT3. And then Martin Silvassi a little bit further down than we might expect, but still inside the top 10 for GT3.
Matthew Trotman lining up alongside Eric Thorpe there in 10th and on row 11 of the starting grid. Cameron Stubber and Sean Reed in his GTE. Mark Brettel and Jamie Mishkonig 12th and 13th on their respective starting grids. Adrian Vlock and Dane Warren, and we're coming into the non-qualifiers, Jake Maloney and Cameron Dance, as the field moves away to begin their formation.
So it will be an all-GT affair here. No fuel restriction on either of these cars. If they're fueled enough, they will go to the end. We'll see the split here between GTE and GT3. Luis Pologal, the GT3 leader, has been instructed to hold back to help the separation between these two classes because they're very similar in straight line speed, our GTE and GT3 machines. GTE's being faster through the corners, but there's just not as many of them around here at Daytona. So race control trying to make sure that these two classes of cars stay a little bit further separated. Luis Pologal not seemingly interested in doing that, though.
No, doesn't seem like it. There is a bit of a mixture between the classes here, so it'd be difficult to coordinate a start. We're seeing a couple of GTEs at the back having to slow up, but we are going green flag racing. This is a 45-minute sprint, no pit stop, no fuel restrictions. It's just out and out racing, and Philip Morton leading the way. A BMW heavy GTE class into turn 1. Looks like a clean getaway for him, but right behind, there's a lot of jostling in the pack. GT3s and GTEs all together through turns 1, 2, and 3, but it looks like a clean getaway for most of these guys.
A lot of 3 wide coming into the first of the horseshoes. Bit of a checkup, couple of panels rubbing against each other, but for the most part, away cleanly. Take a look at some of these moves here.
On
One
for
of the
the
Prologue
lead.
React cars being monstered by Michael Healy.
Yeah, Michael Healy doing very well at the moment, putting some big pressure on the Prologue car. Almost on for the lead in GTE, though, because Warren Pickering got a mega run on Philip Morton out of the International Horseshoe. It was almost a pass, but looks like Phil has managed to cover him pretty well coming onto the straight, but now the draft comes into it. This is where things are going to get interesting.
Expect to about 30 cars in a train here. Switch for position in the lead of GT3. Luis Polo Gallon and Jackson Susan Harlow in the middle of an ocean of GTE cars, but their 2 Mercedes still doing battle here. Jackson Susan Harlow is going to have the inside on the run towards the bus stop, and LPG is monstering him down towards the inside. Bit of contact between cars behind.
Big contact there, and I think Luis Polo Gallon won't be too happy with that, and a replay also would be essential because there's a lot of effects from that one. Pat Gallo, one of the guys to come off worse from that, and the GT field now still jostling around the final bit of the banking. Motor simulation replay. Let's see what happened here between Luis Polo Gallon and Jackson Susan Harlow. So it was a big squeeze from Gallon coming down the straight towards the bus stop, but then we had some GTE cars bearing down on them. So looked like Pat Gallo might have missed his braking point, and Darren Huxham, an innocent victim out of all of that.
Live into turn 1, which we'll get to, but I think one of the things that's happening here is the difference in the braking points between GTE and GT3 cars. Like we say, they're doing pretty similar speeds down the straight here. Pat Gallo's just looking for room down the inside, and I think he brakes at a regular GTE braking point, while the other driver involved there was trying not to run up the back of the battling GT3 leaders.
Well, unfortunately, that's put Luis Polo Gallon way far back, as well as Pat Gallo and Darren Huxham. None of them will be too happy with what transpired there, but Warren Pickering up ahead of these 2 guys, Lee Vandenberg and Ben Dutton fighting for position here. Ben Dutton in the Ferrari. Vandenberg trying to cover the inside here coming up to the bus stop. These guys know that it's all-out racing in this one. They don't have to worry about pit stop strategy, and the tyres can certainly last the distance. Not the best exit for Vandenberg. He's off into the grass on the exit of the bus stop. It's going to give a slight bit of a run here to Dutton. And we got Daniel Cheney right behind them as well, looking to get into the mix.
Very interested to see how this Ferrari goes. Like you said, BMW heavy, and in this class making up the bulk of the field. Brady Myers in his BMW, big run. Philip Morton stays low. So these 2 are going to be side by side on the brakes in towards turn 1. Myers has the nose in front, but the corner just keeps going to the left.
Yeah, there we go. That was a bit of contact there. Myers, I'm not sure if he turned in on Morton or Morton just ran out a little bit wide, but either way, that sent Morton into a spin that he couldn't recover from. And from fighting to the lead to being mired back in the pack, bad luck for Morton. Here's a replay.
Yeah, we saw it on board at the time, and 2 wide in that braking zone, always difficult. If you're coming down off the banking, there's a lot of a bump as you come down onto the flat section of track, and Morton's, I think, not able to keep braking while keep turning, breathes out just a tiny bit too wide. Unfortunate that little bit of contact sees him facing the wrong way, the whole field streaming past. He really couldn't get moving till everyone was through.
It was a very awkward spot there at turn 1. It's one of the danger zones of this circuit. You got to think about that pit wall on the inside and the tyre bundle right at the apex that you could easily hit if you turn in slightly too early. Back then to Vandenberg and Dutton for the podium positions, and these are your top 5 in GTE at the moment, battling out on track. Warren Pickering managing to move up into second thanks to Morton's bad luck, and Brady Myers has got the lead, and I think he's just out of draft range. Dutton with a good run, though, out of the bus stop, and that's a position for him.
Yeah, unusual to see a car be able to get to the inside before the banking there, but just a great run from Ben Dutton. Saw the window open, put his nose in. Vandenberg will try and come back at it, but again, we're going to see this 2 wide into turn 1 situation. Can be so difficult to go around the outside here because you are braking and turning. I think Dutton has it covered so long as he can make the corner.
Yeah, that's it. You saw Vandenberg pulling out a little bit, getting some distance between himself and Dutton so they could both make the corner. Well, now it looks like this is going to be a draft train if these guys can catch up to Warren Pickering, who's doing very well in second place in GTE. Here's Pat Gallo and Sam Devantier. Meanwhile, Devantier and Gallo both fighting from the back here in GTE.
Yeah, indeed, and there's two GT3 cars in front of them. Jackson Susan Harlow leading that class has, what's that, about 2.5 seconds over Bradley Ratu, and Ratu's holding up BJ Kennedy, so it's going to be very interesting for the GT3 cars, seeing as they are so mixed amongst the slightly faster GT brethren, but again, they're doing similar speeds in a straight line, and that will be hurting BJ Kennedy there. He's going to try and go around the outside. Ratu would be wise to let him go deeper. The GT3 cars continue to battle. It's more side by side in several places.
Yes, indeed. The GT3s actually have a bit of an edge on the GTEs in terms of straight line speed, depending on the track. So you'll see GT3s really sticking with the GTEs on the oval, and that is not a good exit there from the BMW. It's right back behind Ratu, and he's got two of his compatriots bearing down on him. BJ Kennedy is going to go 3 wide here with Devantier and Gallo potentially, but no. They take the somewhat safer option.
And I'm sure that'll be rather frustrating for Bradley Ratu as we see diving onto the pit lane goes one of those GTEs. I'm sure he wanted to follow that GTE car up towards his class leader, but he's not going to be able to do it. So hearing Pat Gallo, a drive-through penalty, and from what we saw of the onboard, that incident in towards the bus stop that also took out Luis Paulo Gallon, potentially warranted.
Yeah, potentially indeed. So looked like Gallo was pulling into his pit box, so I don't know if he's got some damage to repair or he's electing to retire the car instead, but we'll bring you updates on that. On board, meanwhile, with his teammate Lee Vandenberg as he follows Ben Dutton around. And these guys all line astern now as Warren Pickering's managed to gap them a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be a concern for our third place runner here in Ben Dutton. Is he still in the slipstream of Warren Pickering ahead? And the closing speeds of Lee Vandenberg suggests maybe these three are just losing touch with first and second. They're going to battle in towards the bus stop, and that's not a good way to stay in touch with the cars in front. I think Dutton just backs out of it. This is going to cost everyone a handful of time, compromise their exit, and really narrows it down to maybe a Myers and Pickering 1-2 battle, because Ben Dutton now out of place. No way he can catch those guys in front.
Yeah, he's still trying to snatch a little bit of draft there from Lee Vandenberg, but has to wait until the front stretch for it to really take effect. Got to remember Daniel Cheney right behind them here, and he'll get involved in this battle as well. Vandenberg staying ahead into turn 1 as Pickering continues to jet away, but Myers holding the gap to the lead very well. It seems like Myers and Pickering are in their own little world at the moment.
Does not hurt this battle that the two behind continue to have. Vandenberg driving very defensively for the fact that there is 36 minutes of racing still to happen and everyone ought to be fueled to get to the end. Sort of shooting himself in the foot there, I would think, but that was one car very, very far away from the racing line. Darren Huxham, we're going to take a look at what happened to him all the way in the runoff of turn 1. He's battling two Trick GT3 cars, which do look faster than him in a straight line, but under brakes, what happens? He just loses the rear, and my goodness, he went very far offline there, but managed to hold on to it.
Incredibly close to tag in the back of Trent Thomas there in the Trick GTE. We're going to take a view from on board Trent. Actually, I think it might have been the car directly ahead of him there that had the near miss, Martin Silvassi. But that was a very lucky move there. It was actually Scott Cislovsky, so it's a good turnout from Trick here. Oh, that was so close, just pinching the rears into turn 1.
Yeah, and then Cislovsky's looking in his mirrors a little bit, and some of his teammates caught up on him somewhat. Taking a look here, Dutton, Vandenberg, Daniel Cheney continuing to fight.
Yeah, and it's a good run here from Lee coming across the start-finish stretch, but I don't know if he'll be able to keep that run into turn one. He's going to try and go for it around the outside, but not quite enough room or momentum to get the move done there. So it's Dutton still at the front of this train, the lone Ferrari in a sea of BMWs, it seems. One of the Ferraris in a sea of BMWs. There's more than one.
Yeah, certainly feels like that, doesn't it? So this three-car battle, they're dropping a bit further back. So there's some GT3 battles continuing on here. One of the EXG cars, one of the Swift cars battling Stubber and Thorpe over what is 9th and 10th in class. They're not far back from a lot of the GT3 pack. I'm sure they'd hope to stay in touch with that.
Yeah, I'm sure they would, because Troy Maguire up ahead. It's quite a big gap there that these guys would have to make up. They'd have to start working together around the oval, but it looks like they're quite content getting in each other's faces at the moment. Good battle between Thorpe and Stubber here.
Yep. Now, a bit of a sandwich for the Trick Sim Sports cars, because Matthew Trotman, I think, has managed to peel one position away from Martin Silvassi. Now, Trotman has his eyes forwards on Solosky and Trent Thomas, and Solosky leading this train is third in class. That's the final step on the podium. Trotman just picking them off strategically one by one in this class that is very Mercedes dominated. That 6.2 litre Mercedes V8 makes it perfect for these kind of races where you spend a lot of time at that wide open throttle. Silvassi is really struggling there. More battling in GGE.
Oh.
These guys will never stop. Dutton still has the inside.
Yeah, he certainly does. It's another try around the outside from Vandenberg, but he covers it, and potential move for GT3s. Trotman is now seeing these Trick guys go side by side as Trent Thomas stakes his claim at turn one, but Sislovsky having the momentum. And have a look at the catch-up there in the braking zone from Jake Maloney. He's right on the back of these guys again.
Is that who's in the picture? This is definitely one of our best GT3 trains. I'm seeing third down to about 7th in this particular class, and no matter who leads, it just punches that hole in the air at 270 kilometers an hour for everyone else behind in 6th gear to close right on up. And it's a great shot of them. It's in the evening here at Daytona. It's getting a little bit darker as the race continues. From that shot, you really saw that the headlight illumination becomes a little bit more important. Ooh, a bit of plane spotting as well.
Yeah, boy. Of course, Daytona International Speedway right next to an airport, so you do get the occasional winged beast flying over you as you drive around the track. Excellent touch there by iRacing to include that. But this battle in GT3 just continuing to bubble away. It's another draft battle as Vandenberg is around.
At the entry to the bus stop as well. I wonder if there was contact, a bit of side-by-side there. A modem simulation replay has all of the answers, I'm sure. So here he goes towards the inside of Ben Dutton. He's got a nose and a bit in there, and I think he just gets squeezed down, came in with too much speed. I didn't see any contact there.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't necessarily contact. It was more the rears pinching in that BMW. It looks like Dutton did leave him some room there. So that's unfortunate for Vandenberg. But Dutton continuing on. Here's another view of it. We'll see if there's a bit of contact here. Nah, it just looks like a spin there. Straight up spin under brakes.
Tough braking zone too, because to be quick through the bus stop, you've really got to jump over those yellow curbs. They unsettle your car a little bit. We've already seen any change of elevation while turning and braking in that BMW M8 GTE. Quite difficult to do. So here we're back with the Trick guys who are under a bit of attack here. We've seen Matthew Trotman carve his way in here. Michael Healy's part of them as well. Yeah, the under a little bit of attack. Jake Maloney appears to be a lap down, but he's right in here and not giving up.
Yeah, interesting to see that that Maloney is considered a lap down there. I wonder if he missed the start or had to pit for some reason. Started in the pits, we're hearing, so he's definitely showing that he's got a huge amount of pace relative to these guys.
And honestly, you can probably be about half a second a lap slower and comfortably be able to stay with another car here at Daytona, so long as you're hitting your marks, you don't make any sloppy mistakes. It's it's actually kind of easy. Just don't overdrive any of the corners. Make sure you get a halfway reasonable exit, and the slipstream does the rest.
Yeah, certainly does. Huge amount
Racing
of
is
draft.
harder compared to just staying with someone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's a lot of strategy to using the draft at Daytona, especially when you're before the midpoint of a race. You don't want to get too far into the draft and mess up your corner entry and mid-corner, because that's where you really gain the most amount of time. But this battle in GT3, Trent Thomas now at the front of it, and Eric Thorpe, we're hearing, is around at turn 1, it seems.
Yeah, another battle where the GTE and GT3 cars were intermingling. We had who was it? Might have been Vandenberg and Cameron Dance getting in on the battle that was Eric Thorpe and Cameron Stubber. And I think with all of the cars in his mirror, Thorpe's driven it in a little bit hot to get it stopped and turned.
Yeah, well, it looks like Cameron Stubber got in on the inside and gave him a good old tap, and it looks like the Fitzstye Motorsport car of Philip Morton into the wall again, so Morton's race going from bad to worse. Big shame.
Shame
So-
that indeed. Of course, no pit stops in this race means you drop a bit far down, you drop out of the pack, and it's going to be very, very tough indeed to salvage any kind of result without attrition from some of your fellow drivers.
Exactly right. But that is the nature of endurance racing, and it's what these guys are going to be dealing with in the official iRacing Daytona 24 Hours going live this weekend. Brady Myers at the front of our GTE field has got a huge gap now over Warren Pickering, and a very good lap from Mr. Myers in this situation. He briefly dipped into the low 42s. He's back to a 42 flat now, so that car's working well for him.
Yeah, there was a battle between Ben Dutton and Daniel Cheney behind that as well, and Cheney dove it into turn 1, came in a bit too hot, and Ben Dutton grabbed the position back, but Daniel Cheney doing, I think, a rather fantastic job considering the battles he's been amongst. I remember when we first saw him on GT League's Australia broadcast, and the leaps and bounds and improvements that he's made to now be battling for a top 3 here, very commendable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic to see the results that he's going through here. Very good result indeed so far, but we've got a little bit to go until the checkered flag drops, I should probably say, if I can find my words. And for our GT3 runners, they're still getting themselves mired in a pack with each other. Trent Thomas and Scott Kozlowski still being harassed by Jake Maloney at the front of the pack, but the rest seems to have spaced out. Trotman's dropped off, Keeley and Silvassi have dropped off as well.
Yeah, when you look at the timing screen, Trotman is right in the middle of a trick sandwich, 2 in front and 2 behind. So he will hopefully, he's thinking to look and pick off a couple more positions. See, it really is complicated by having that quick car of Jake Maloney 1 lap down in the middle there as well.
Yeah, it's a good draft from Jake Maloney, actually. He might try to attempt a move here on Kozlowski. It's a big gap forward to Trent Thomas, so Maloney does have the space to slot himself in, but dipping down to the inside and sort of half going for the move, but catching a couple of tires there. I don't think the Trick Boys will be too happy with Maloney at the moment. Just getting in their way at the moment, being a lap down, but shows that Maloney could have been fighting in this pack properly.
Yeah, with a great sort of art car inspired livery as well. Easy to spot him in the dark. Almost blinding in a way, but I think Solowski's done the clever thing here to stop fighting that. We know whatever car he's in, Jake Maloney is relatively quick. So Scott Solowski lets him through. He hasn't lost a position. And I think now that he is through, he's probably not going to hold up Solowski a whole lot.
Yeah, if anything, it'd probably be beneficial to for Trent Thomas if Maloney eventually catches him to drop behind and just let him be dragged along. That could definitely help himself and Sislovsky if that ends up being the case. Well, around the track, it looks like this is one of the only big battles we've got because Ben Dutton and Daniel Cheney are currently closest together in GTE. So the rest of our GTE field very spread out now.
Yeah, and I think some of the slightly slower GTE cars that were then mixed in with the GT3 cars didn't have a good time of it at the start. We did see a bit of attrition from the lower down orders in the ranks, and of course, like you say, the GT3 cars might have the most microscopic of edges in a straight line. That's made it so difficult for the way the two cars try and race together when they're not the same class, but they are similar enough and with the similar characteristics like that. I think Daniel Cheney has what it takes to close back up on Ben Dutton. Some of those GT3 cars swapping positions. Thought Matthew Trotman might move higher up. I think if anything, he's become the cork in the bottle there.
Yeah, looks like it at the moment. He's just not able to draw up to the back of the Trick duo up ahead. And he's facing a bit of pressure now from Michael Healy here on the infield. Could potentially be a draft situation for those guys.
Indeed. Haven't seen any bump drafting out there yet. Maybe desperate times later in the race will call for those kind of desperate measures. For the moment, it's just the draft keeping all these cars together. If Healy did get to the bumper of Matthew Trotman, he might be able to push him up to that next pack. That's kind of a risky maneuver in GT cars.
Yeah, it is a bit of a risky maneuver. These cars are not exactly built for hard and fast sprint races. They can take a bit of damage, but these long races and the somewhat fragile nature of the way they produce their downforce, I mean, these are tough cars, but they can only take so much.
Daniel Cheney has had an incident, dropped about 8 or so seconds. So I won't take back what I said earlier because I stand by it, but his good run and his battle with Ben Dutton has unfortunately come to an end for the moment, unless he can pull 8 seconds out of the bag somewhere.
Yeah, it looks like it was a spin through turn 6 for Daniel Cheney. We're about to see it on replay now. Very easy to do. As you go over those bumps, if you lose a little bit of grip, the car becomes almost impossible to recover. So that's where the 8 or 9 seconds came from for Daniel Cheney. Made a good recovery back onto the oval, though. He's right ahead of our GT3 leader, Jackson Suslin Harlow. We're going to take a look again at the 5th and 6th battle because Trotman and Healy very close together now. Healy giving the old flash of the headlights as well. So it's game on.
Trotman does appear to be struggling to put the power down in some of these corners. Maybe he's got a super pointy setup down the inside. Big bonsai move there. Isn't going to work for a Michael Healy. Was that intentional? Did he miss his braking marker? But he dove down the inside, but it was too hot. Trotman slots back up underneath the inside, grabs that position back. That might have been frustration from Michael Healy.
Yeah, well, it was a very good lob, I have to say, but all up, it's ended up losing him a bit more time to Trotman in front, and the draft is gone for at least another lap. Here's a replay then. Of course, thanks to Modem Simulation. Thank you for your support over the past couple of years here at SimSpeed TV. So what did Healy do? I think it might have just been a matter of missing his braking point because you could see that there was no way he could make that corner normally.
Yeah, he was already on the brakes and maybe a bit locked up by the time he turns down the inside there to avoid hitting Trotman. So it's not like he came through the kink determined to put his nose down the inside from the onboard and having seen it again. It looks like Healy had a bit of a mistake, recovered from it very well, and now he's just got his nose in front. But how many times have we seen someone make a pass around the outside into turn 1 here? Not very many.
No, not very many at all, and not much grip there on the outside for Healy. Admirably holding the outside, but Trotman just having that slightly better line through the corner. Multiple lines possible through turn 1. Healy not done at all. Little bit of a bump there on Trotman. So he absolutely means business now. They feel like they're getting held up, these trick guys. They want to punch through and start drafting up to their teammates ahead. Is it going to be another move here from Healy? Almost a look to the inside, but it's hard to tell due to the nature of the corner. Incredibly close now. You can see Silvassi looking around, looking for a gap as well.
It's interesting to see Silvassi sniffing around, looking for a different line as Trotman and Healy start to hold each other up just a little bit. You can definitely see a couple of ways that the trick cars could work together here to try and get past Trotman and try and get on clear, but not quite playing the team game properly just yet. Healy right underneath the rear wing of Matthew Trotman, right at that rear diffuser, to the inside for the bus stop. He's just got his nose in there. I think Trotman does the clever thing. Was Healy in too hot, though?
Yep, he was, definitely. He got onto the grass at the second apex of the bus stop. Don't know if he would have gotten a slowdown, sorry, from that. But it's certainly brought them together here, and Silvassi taking advantage. So now both trick cars are ahead of Matthew Trotman, but will Trotman try and get down onto the apron? No, Healy covers him. So can Trotman try and stay with these guys now? That is the main challenge. Side by side with Healy into turn one. Healy just leaping ahead a bit on the braking zone. That's a GTE coming out of the pits next to them. Mark Brettel down in 21st position overall. But that's both trick cars now ahead of Matthew Trotman, and with Healy covering there off Trotman, I feel like that's where they're going to stay.
Yeah, 2 for 1 there for Martin Silvassi, really. Saw the two battling, and good work by him. Trotman not going to give up just yet, and look at that, Healy defending the inside into this horseshoe. And there are several lines through here. You can take an apex in the middle, an apex later on. It's true of a couple corners around Daytona. This one onto the banking, I think, as well. Some turn in early, breathe all the way out to the exit. Some take a late apex, try and get the throttle open earlier, and sort of diamond it off, head straight onto the banking.
Yeah, a lot of lines possible around many corners here at Daytona, and sometimes it seems like none of them work right. That's been my experience driving around this track anyway. So Sislovsky and Silvassi, 4th and 5th now for Trick. It's a 4-5-6. 2-3-4-5-6 almost for Trick Sim Sports. Jake Maloney and Trent Thomas battling hard here. Of course, we've got to remember Maloney is still a lap down on these guys. But it looks like, having gotten ahead of Thomas, he's staying in front. And you see both of the Trick guys here once again trying to cover off Matthew Trotman.
Well, this is a buffet for Trotman when those two are side by side. He can pick and choose which draft he wants to grab. But I think the two Trick guys have just covered it off towards turn one, down towards the inside. They keep Trotman behind. Silvassi playing rear gunner for the moment.
Yeah, so Healy doing well there out in front, nice and smooth. Trotman's still putting the pressure on Silvassi, but it looks like his attempts are becoming less and less brave as time goes on. We'll have to wait and see how these guys finish, see if Trotman can come back right at the end. There's not long to go either. We're just coming up on almost 2/3 race distance.
Time flies on the banking, doesn't it? And flying along is Philip Morton, who we saw those issues for earlier. And as we get deeper into the evening, I think the track is cooling off just slightly. That might be what's helping Philip Morton put in a cracking lap like that. He's also had a pit stop, but that just looks like for repairs, not long enough to put on a fresh set of tyres.
Yeah, unfortunately, Morton's chances of the win are basically null at this point, but it's still good to get back out there and see what kind of pace you can do. Good preparation for the official Daytona 24. These Trick guys still running line astern in GT3. This is the closest battle on track at the moment, and just ahead of them, our GT3 leaders putting in some pretty consistent lap times. They're very close. Bradley Ratu and Jackson Suslan-Harlow only separated by a 10th or so in terms of lap time, so it's still an interesting competition up front.
Yeah, we see side by side from the Trick guys again as they're maybe just trying to stop Trotman from finding a line, but he'll try to get his nose down the inside, won't work. What's going to be really interesting for Bradley Ratu, though, is he's got BJ Kennedy in a GTE car behind him, closing up once again. As I say that, I think he's actually had an issue, but yeah, certainly that would have been very, very interesting again for Ratu, that maybe he would have been able to use a GTE car to help him close up a little bit further. Maguire might be going to close in on this battle we've been watching as Healy, Salvassi block out Trotman and lose a little bit of time. Maguire looks very, very close now.
Yeah, we haven't really considered how it would affect Maguire relative to these guys, so interesting to see that he is drawing up to the back of them now. It was 1 minute 44s from all three of these GT3 runners, Healy, Salvassi and Trotman. Maguire also setting 44s, but just a tenth faster or so per lap. He'll be in draft range soon, and he'll be mixing it with these guys.
That will be one that is very, very interesting to watch. There's some GTE cars back there as well, but Troy Maguire in an interesting spot where he just needs to hit these lines, do well through the corners, and any little battles from the guys in front will let him close in. And Healy and Salvassi haven't been leapfrogging each other. Salvassi's just been checking up behind Healy, playing rear gunner. And a couple tenths a lap is the extent to which Maguire is quicker. And I'd say around Daytona, if you're within 1.5 seconds of the car in front, you'll be picking up a bit of slipstream. Not enough to close the gap on the straights, but just enough that he's not being left behind.
Yeah, and you can see him getting closer lap by lap as well, coming into turn one. There's the pack right in front of him.
4 tenths quicker than Healy that time around, so Maguire is just a little bit by bit bringing himself into this fight, which is very interesting to see.
Yeah, these guys are having a bit of trouble up ahead. They won't have anyone to draft. The next car up from Healy is Cislovsky, who's just making his way through the hairpin now. Not quite close enough for the draft to have any effect. So with only 12 minutes and 40 seconds left to go in this one, this is going to be how the battles stack up, and this is how starting or finishing positions will be defined. Yes.
More dramas for BJ Kennedy, who was running 5th in GTE, and I said might mix up the GT3 fight, but you can see he was on pit road, missing the whole front of this car, and this is how he did it. This is heading towards going back onto the oval. Very bumpy here. And does it just go out wide? Does he spin as a bit of a tank slapper trying to come onto the banking? And look how close he got to Maloney and would have been Sulowski maybe. Those guys just avoided him.
Yeah, that was very close there, but it's another thing that you got to consider around Daytona. The car very loaded up at that section of the corner, so if you lose a bit of grip, then very hard to recover. So shame there for BJ Kennedy, but he had a good run, definitely, in his class. Close together again, this battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th in GT3. And these trick guys still playing gunners. Looks like Maguire hasn't quite been able to catch up to them as much on this one.
The pace has picked up for Healy and Salvassi. They're back in the 1 minute 43s. They did quite a lot of laps in the 1 minute 44s, which is where Maguire was starting to close in on them. But with, as you say, about 8 laps, 11 minutes to go, picked it up just enough to make it difficult for Maguire to stay in touch. And I think Trotman hasn't been going for the overtakes in quite as many positions as before. That will definitely change with a couple of laps to go. You can see Maguire, great run off the second horseshoe, and he's just tantalizingly close to picking up a toe off Matthew Trotman.
Yeah, I'd say the gap is just over a second, so little whispers of draft within a second now, actually, as we can see on screen. So he will be getting some draft, will Troy Maguire, but Trotman, with the benefit of the 2 trick cars in front of him, sucking up to the back of them at a slightly greater rate. So there's a lot of push and pull going on in the draft at the moment. It was a clean run through the bus stop, though, for Maguire, so he's catching back up to him again.
Yeah, and that's critical for him, that run through the bus stop, where if he lost half a second there, he'd then lose even more time out of the draft down the following straight. But if he gets a good run through the bus stop, brings him up a little bit closer into the draft, and then gives him more speed as an investment on an investment, where it sort of balloons into bringing him into this battle. And Trotman got very close to the rear bumper of Silvassi. Troy Maguire must have picked up a bit of the slipstream, because you can see he's just gone and done a 43.5, his personal best lap so far. I think some of that help would have been the slipstream. BJ Kennedy trying to rejoin the race, but trying to stay out of the way.
Yes, indeed, and he's just getting going there, falling into position behind Lee Vandenberg. So Maguire now well and truly in the draft range of this three-car battle. We'll find out once they get onto the oval how much he can gain on them again. Silvassi and Healy remaining consistent. They did laps in the high 43s once again last time round, but Maguire gaining 4/10 on the last lap, certainly putting them into a spot of bother.
Yeah, Maguire, that's sort of the dark horse right now, where he is 8th in class, but just up the road on a circuit where it's very easy to get a pass done on the final lap. You can see 5th place Michael Healy. He is closing up to make this what will be, no doubt, an interesting battle all the way to the finish here. Think about Trotman, who's been rather polite the last couple of laps. I think he's just waiting, planning, thinking what he might be able to do on the final lap. And I think the same will be true of Maguire if he continues to close on this fantastic little scrap.
Yes, indeed, it's going to be the final lap on which the moves are made, I would presume. And it's going to be all about the exit from the bus stop. If you can be on the tail of the car in front of you on the exit of the bus stop, you basically guarantee the mother of all drafts towards the start-finish line. So that would be very welcome for Trotman and Maguire. Gap now 6/10 between these guys. And it is now properly a 4-car train.
Yep, there's no shaking Maguire now. He is right there. We've seen Silvassi's been really rolling out of the throttle and sticking his nose out of the draft just so that he doesn't bother Michael Healy, and that has been helping the guys behind keep close as well. Every other battle a little bit further spaced out. This one, we've been watching it because it is very close. A couple of teams involved in building towards a rather dramatic conclusion, you would have to think.
Yeah, this is the closest and biggest battle on track at the moment, as we almost hit 7 minutes to go. And it's fairly even Steven spacing between these cars. Maguire will now have the draft fully, and look at the gains that he's making on Trotman, coming onto the back straight and up to the bus stop. And that's going to be amplified once they exit this corner. How's the run going to be? Maguire a little bit hot into there, but a clean exit, that's what matters.
Yeah, precisely. So now all of them fitting very neatly within one camera shot on the banking. Taking a look at some of the speeds, approaching 270 kilometers an hour here. Only gets faster on the run towards turn 1. I'm seeing maximum speeds of about 288 for Martin Silvassi on the previous lap. So when they pick up a good toe, these cars are quite rapid indeed.
Yeah, slight problem there for Michael Healy getting it slowed up for turn 1, but still manages to maintain forward momentum. There won't be any moves being made in the infield at this point. Oh, slight bit of contact between teammates there. Silvassi losing a bit of time as a result of that. So this has basically given a big chance to Matthew Trotman and Troy Maguire coming onto the oval.
Yeah, indeed, for sure. Maguire is right there, but he hasn't tried to make any moves yet. Does he try and get ahead of Trotman so he's behind the trick guys for the last couple of laps, or does he wait a little bit longer? You don't want to jump too early on this one, but if you're Maguire with good pace, you probably can't wait till the last lap to try and pass 3 cars. He might need to put one on Trotman now and try and hold that gap between Trotman and Silvassi.
Yeah, that'd be the smartest thing to do, because while some incredible things do happen at Daytona, passing 3 cars in one stretch of the oval is not always one of them. especially when you've got a field as competitive as this. Another good exit, though, from Troy Maguire, and almost going down onto the apron. He's got a rapid bit of pace here versus Matthew Trotman. Also getting the draft from Silvassi. And it's going to be Healy on his own out in front there. You see Maguire pulling out of the draft as well, just to conserve a little bit more, save his aggression for the final couple of laps. Matthew Trotman not doing the same thing. He's gone right for it on Martin Silvassi, and he is through in turn 1. So the moves are being made now.
Committed late, but a great move to find that space down the inside. Maguire will surely have to follow likewise when he can. So we saw that Trotman just calmed down for a couple of laps until maybe Silvassi had a false sense of security. Big move from Trot.
Well, he certainly set the standard for what these last couple of laps are going to be in GT3. 4 minutes to go, so it'll only be 3 laps for these guys once they cross the line next. Time is running out, and they are fully line astern coming out of turn 6. What's Maguire going to do here?
He is right with Silvassi. Silvassi's not quite as close to Trotman, and Trotman is still picking up the draft off Healy. So I think Silvassi versus Maguire on the run into the bus stop is going to be the one to watch. Maguire will want to get this move done on Silvassi, but he rolls out of the throttle, and I think he's going to try and give himself the space to pick his braking point, get a good run through the middle of the bus stop, but he drops back just a little bit further. That change of direction in the middle of the bus stop is very, very tough.
Yeah, but also the draft is quite powerful, so if you stay a couple of car lengths back and time it right, you can actually get a good amount of overspeed on the car in front of you. Maguire, though, looks like he's content to sit behind once again. Not quite time yet. Healy, on the other hand, the gap is now very close between himself and Matthew Trotman. The 4 cars are back together again.
Yep, they certainly are. Solosky just up the road was a bit slow, about a second off his best last time around. I wonder if now he's out of the slipstream, he's got some fuel concerns. Brady Myers, your leader in GTE, has romped away now 11 seconds clear of Warren Pickering. He's going to have 2 laps to go this time, so when we're nearing the end, he's going to be the first to see the checkered flag. This battle is on the same lap, about half a lap back.
Yeah, not much time lost between GTE and GT3 over a stint here, and with a race of only 45 minutes, you're not going to see much lapping between classes. It's been a good drive from Myers. He's been nice and calm the whole way through, stayed out of trouble and just set those quick times. Warren Pickering as well, keeping it nice and clean in 2nd place. But this battle for GT3, 7th place back. This is quite the fight we've got brewing, and it's all going to come to a head in the next couple of laps. Healy remaining just far enough ahead, but I think he might have gotten a slowdown out of that one. A bit too much grass on the exit of the bus stop. Might see if he lifts off. He might have just gotten away with it because he's continuing.
Still has Maguire for company, and this pack is almost as close as they've ever been. You can see Maguire's getting dangerously close to hitting the rev limiter there, and I think he's rolling out of the throttle a little bit again, but now he's going to have a look once more. Difficult to find a place to position your car. Trotman's on the attack. Healy a bit wide. I don't think Trotman's going to find any room there. He's getting aggressive with these trick guys once again, and there's a minute left on the clock. 2 laps for these guys. That means 2 more times through the bus stop, and they're running out of time to get the moves done if you're Maguire or Trotman. If you're Healy and Silvassi, what can you do in this situation?
Yeah, it's difficult to be defensive around this circuit on the last lap, because Healy doesn't have anyone to help him. Solosky's still a bit too far ahead, so...
White flag in the air for Brady Myers, so he's got 1 more lap there. He starts the final lap now for the lead in GTE.
Yeah, good run there from Myers, and I don't suspect that will change anytime soon, but this 4-car fight that we've been following for the majority of the broadcast We're about to see it resolved. I was going to say Healy, he's a bit of a sitting duck in a straight line at the moment. With 3 cars behind him and none in front of him. It's going to be another measured run through the bus stop for these guys, but you get the feeling Trotman is just itching to get alongside.
It really looks like Trotman doesn't want to pass now. He wants to pass on the final lap, which these guys are also about to start. I think he's wisely holding back so that he can make that run right towards the end. The concern for him is he's got 2 cars behind him thinking exactly the same thing. They all bunch up on the braking zone into every corner. So he's looking for how he'll get the better of Michael Healy, but his options are limited in that he also needs to defend behind. Limits how far he can back up.
Yeah, definitely does. They're incredibly close at the moment. Oh, that's a mistake from Healy. He's run wide. And Trotman now through to the lead of this pack. Was that tactical, I wonder? They might draft back past him on the oval now.
Yeah, I was wondering exactly the same thing. How much of a mistake was that mistake? But we'll certainly see in a little bit. We'll have plenty of time after Brady Myers takes the win here in GLA Epiroc Summer Series preview of Daytona 24. Great run by him. Now we do have plenty of time to jump back to GT3 and see what happens there. We'll see our leader there, Jackson Suslan-Harlow. He's going to win in this class. The intrigue continues further back though.
Yes, it does. Still not done for this battle. Just outside the top 5 in GT3. Trotman is now in the lead. Semi-defensive out of the oval. Ben Dutton finishing 3rd in GTE. A very good drive from him. Big pressure, though, on Matthew Trotman, and this is going to be the mother of all runs to the start-finish line for Michael Healy. Just cutting the grass, just getting a good run, and it's going to be side-by-side across the line for these guys. Maguire versus Silvassi, still yet to be decided. But Healy pulling out of the draft. He doesn't quite have the run, but the banking will slingshot him here. And he is just half a car length ahead now, almost 1 car length ahead at the start-finish line, and he's going to take it. Incredibly close between those guys.
It's what we kind of expected. You don't actually want to be the leader coming out of that bus stop on the final lap, so Healy just grabbed it back off Trotman, couldn't tow his teammate of Silvassi through, and Troy Maguire does come home 8th in class. Bit of a what if for him there. I think he kept his powder dry until it was too late.
Yeah, big shame for him. That's our GT3 top 2 there. Jackson Suslan-Harlow and Bradley Ratu. A fantastic run from those guys. Unfortunately, we couldn't give them much TV time over the course of this broadcast, but a fantastic run from the Altus and XG cars. And Brady Myers and Warren Pickering coming together, your top 2 in GTE. Great results for Altus Esports once again, and Fusion Sim Racing too.
Yeah, that was definitely the exciting finish we were hoping for. Didn't know what the result was going to be, but now we do, and here they are.
Yeah, Brady Myers and Warren Pickering top 2. Ben Dutton completing the podium in GTE. Daniel Cheney and Lee Vandenberg round out the top 5. Philip Morton recovered to finish 6th in his class. Darren Huxham in 7th. There was a what might have been for Fitzstein Motorsport in that area. Pat Gallo comes home in 8th, and then we head into bad luck and retirement territory. BJ Kennedy and Mark Brettel rounding out the top 10 in that class.
Yeah, the remaining cars that, GT3 class, Jackson Suslan-Harlow, your winner there, just doing enough to keep Bradley Ratu out of his draft and away from the lead in that class. And Trent Thomas for Trick Sim Sports bolts away from the rest of his teammates to grab 3rd. Scott Solosky holds on to 4th ahead of that fantastic battle pack across the line. What is that? A 10th and a half to separate 4 cars. Healy pulling one over Matthew Trotman, who then stood proud from Martin Silvassi. Troy Maguire follows them all across the line into 8th place, and then Cameron Stubbard 9th in class. Eric Thorpe 10th.
And those are your fields. And coming over the page, Jamie Mishkonig, Jake Maloney, and then we get into retirement territory. Would have been nice to see how Luis Paulo Gallon went, but no dice for him tonight. Well, as the night continues at Daytona, we go into post-race with a message from our sponsor.
Epiroc is like a large extended family and everyone looks after each other. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. So post-race, and we're awaiting a couple of drivers to come in for interviews, but that was an incredible prelude to the Daytona 24, and I can't wait for the actual race to kick off now.
Yeah, certainly. If the month of May is all about building up to Indianapolis, I think the month of January is all eyes on Daytona, especially if you're a sports car or endurance fan.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a fantastic event. It's going to be broadcast on the iRacing Esports Network as well. It's going to be a fantastic race. It's traditionally the kickoff for the endurance season on the iRacing service, and a good opportunity for these guys to get some laps in. Definitely showed that the draft is incredibly important. Well, we're going to bring in our GTE winner, Brady Myers, coming home first overall and first in class. Brady, a good result for you.
Yeah, nice result. Just here trying to get some laps for Daytona, but yeah, thought I'd come have a dig, and yeah, came away with the win, which was nice.
Was it much trouble at the start? Because looked like it was very close, but it turned out to be a bit of a race of attrition in GTE.
Yeah, the start was a bit hectic, but just got to have a calm mind and just work your way through it. What we did.
Well, you definitely had a lot of time up your sleeve in that GTE lead. So was it just a case of figuring out the way the setup works over a stint, doing some final prep?
Yeah, a lot of it's just trying to make sure how the car sort of behaves across the stint and how it will behave in the race and in differing conditions. So I'm pretty happy with how the car works. It's just my driving, got to try and get a little bit more up to speed with my teammates.
Well, it certainly looks like relative to this field, you were up to speed, Brady. With Altus's preparations for the Daytona 24, it's obviously a big race for you guys. How are things looking for your results so far?
I think we're looking really good. All the guys have been putting in a lot of effort with laps and training and lots of setup work, which is good. So hopefully we'll have our reward comes on Sunday night.
Well, thank you for joining us, Brady, and congratulations on the victory. Before we let you go, any shout-outs or sponsors? Who gets it done for you?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the guys at Altus Esports. They've been working around the clock with setup and everything, and I think they've gotten something quite good. I'd like to thank also our sponsors, Logitech, Tube Controls, Astro, and you guys for the broadcast.
Thank you very much, Brady Myers, your overall and GTE winner. And just coming in now, our GT3 winner, Jackson Suslan Harlow. David, you're speaking to him.
Yeah, Jackson, first of all, congratulations on the win there in GT3. Bit of a very mixed up start, I think, for the GT3 guys, sort of in an ocean of GTE cars. How do you negotiate that when, on paper, they're the faster class of car and you're mixed in right with them?
First of all, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a pretty good fun race. It's really good practice before the 24 this weekend. I didn't know what to do on the start. We got told to leave like a 5-second gap, and I was trying to slow down, but I think Louise, I don't think he had his mic on or whatever, so he was right up the back of them. So I thought I'll just move up and see what happens. If we have to race with the GTEs, we have to race. And it was a good fun couple of corners. Me and Louise banged doors a couple of times, so it was quite fun. But all in all, it was a fun race.
And I guess kind of unusually for some of these, no fuel restriction, no pit stop required, just 45 minutes of sprint. Did you approach that with a full tank, or did you have the number exactly right?
No, I just put on the 24-hour set. There's really no point trying to change things for that race. It was just a practice race for this weekend. So yeah, just went out there and tried doing laps mainly just to get more laps under me in that car and get more comfortable. There's still a couple of things I think I can improve on, so I'll try and improve on those things before Sunday.
And of course, the slipstream, hugely important around here. Bradley Ratu crosses the line just a couple of seconds behind you. Were you looking at that gap just to make sure he didn't sneak into your draft and give you too much fight deep in the race?
I was looking a little bit, but not really for a fight. Like, I didn't really mind if he caught me. I was just looking to see how my pace was compared to others, and I was even looking at Maloney and that, just seeing how the pace was. I think we had a really good, consistent car, which was the main thing. But yeah, I made some silly mistakes just pushing hard. I just missed the apex a couple of times, which was a bit frustrating. But yeah, was pushing hard, trying to get the most out of it. So can't complain too much.
For the iRacing Daytona 24 coming up this weekend, are we going to see you in an Altus GT3?
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't supposed to race. I was going away for racing, and I'm still going away for racing. But luckily, got an awesome team who are willing to adjust the schedule around me a bit and give me times in the car where I can do it before I fly out. So yeah, you'll see me in a GT3 this weekend. So we'll give it everything to try and back up the win from last year.
Big expectation on your shoulders there. Thanks so much for dropping in, having a word with us. Practice and preparation, I guess, off to a good start with this race here. Anyone you need to thank?
Yeah, just all the Altus boys, everyone who's been working on the setup, all the guys just in Altus for all the help and everything they do for me. So yeah, thank you very much.
There we go, Reese.
Yeah, that was your winner in GT3. And for our final driver interview tonight, we'll talk to second place in GT3, Bradley Ratu. G'day, Brad. Good to have you in the commentary box. It was a great fight in terms of lap times between yourself and Jackson Suzlin Harlow, but second place at the end of it, it was a strong drive.
Yeah, well, definitely a better result than some. Unfortunately, few people didn't make it. The car seemed okay. The pace, well, the consistency was there. Still some time to find in the car, and definitely some driving changes to myself. So a few things to still work on, but yeah, it's getting there well.
And we've seen a lot of teams use this as a lead up to the Daytona 24. Is it the same at the Exto Gaming Squad?
Yep, we'll be driving the GT3 Merc at Daytona 24-hour.
Well, considering this result, it's certainly going to be an interesting one for you guys. In terms of strategy, were you just doing what everyone else seemed to have been doing and just dumping the full fuel load in, seeing how it goes?
Yep, that was a full fuel car. I didn't see much point in only, putting enough fuel for the race. I was there just to see what the car was going to do because I actually hadn't done any more than 10 laps in the car at one stint. So that was my first sort of longer stint. But yeah, the car seemed pretty good, better than I thought it was going to be. Still a few things to work on, but we'll get there.
It was a good, consistent run anyway. Before we let you go, Bradley, any shout-outs or sponsors?
I'd love to shout out NatRad for all their support to the team. They're always giving us support when we need it, and all the boys helping out with the GT3 Merc, and even just doing a few laps to try and work some things out with the boys. Games Apparel, always helpful. They provide us with jerseys and stuff like that, and Quantum Energy, who provide us with energy drink tablet stuff that I don't know.
All good, Bradley. Thank you very much for joining us in the commentary box. That was your second place finisher in GT3. And that brings to an end proceedings for tonight, David. I had a lot of fun. I'm sure you did as well.
Oh yeah, it only makes you more excited for the iRacing Daytona 24-hour coming up. It was a great event to draw out everyone in the Australian community who wanted to see how they go at Daytona, wanted to test out some setups and wanted to see how the different classes interact with each other, because any endurance race, the multi-class aspect, the traffic, where you can and can't pass other cars, so important. So I think that gave a lot of guys some good practice and put on a great show as well.
We'll see how all of that preparation stacks up for them when the iRacing Daytona 24 goes live this weekend, which you will be able to catch on the iRacing Esports Network. For us at SimSpeed TV, though, we've got one more broadcast before that kicks off, and it is tomorrow, Friday night, NASCAR Xfinity. It's oval racing returning to SimSpeed TV. Really looking forward to that. It's going to be a good one for sure, and we hope that everyone joins us for that. You've been a fantastic audience, and we thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you again next time. I've been Reese Gardner. That's been David Haynes, Jay Kennedy on the cameras. We'll see you very soon here on SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?